Records, George Michael, anything.
That's my boy!
Wimp.
I don't know why, but something is wrong. All the things they don't want you. Tom Generation Next. Oh, it's what's coming next. Tom Generation Next.
The fuck up!
What's true? That's why we gotta shine a light. Oh, shine a light, shine a light. We gotta shine a light. Oh, yeah. Together forever. Yeah. Tom Generation Next.
Hi, I'm Tom Fury and this is Zero News. Do you know something? I just realised just before as I'm coming on, I was just bringing up some stuff to have a look at in case we needed it. And I noticed that it said, so we've don't know if we're going to get out on this connection. It's not a great one, so that might just pause for a second. So I'll give it a second. Hopefully it'll come through. So what I wanted to say at the beginning of this video before I get going with the topic, and I don't want to be on too long today. It's just the videos I'm doing aren't getting out at all. But oh, I can't remember what it was I was going to say now. Well, we'll get straight to the topic. It'll come back to me. Oh no, it was about yeah, some of the emails I was getting and stuff. I'm still getting a lot of emails, and I am, to anybody that has emailed me, I am going to get back to you as soon as possible. I saw Vin did a video about voting, about yeah, just about, you know, it does voting work, do petitions work, stuff like that. And when I was watching his video, it kind of got me thinking about, you know, I'm 49 now. I've seen a few elections. I've sort of got to an age where you say I've been around, you know. Doesn't mean I've seen everything, but I've been around. I've seen quite a few elections come through now, and I've not taken part in that many of them, to be honest with you. But so even when people used to think that elections were, because I think a lot of people feel the same way I do, and that is that probably since Brexit that Parliament's kind of gone rogue, and that voting doesn't mean much. I think, you know, whenever your time frame is, it's going to be somewhere similar. But I honestly remember going back some time. They say if you're the same person in 30 years' time as you were 30 years ago, then you've wasted 30 years, right? But I feel like I've gone full circle. Because I'll tell you the truth, I hate politics. I absolutely hate politics. I've got so deep into politics, but it was my least interesting thing. One of the only things that really forced me into politics was history, because learning about history, you have to learn about a lot of politics as well. So, but it wasn't even that. It was our times, the things that are happening to us, that kind of, like everybody else, the world has become politicized. It's not just me. Everybody, it's happened to everybody. They've had no choice because the world is changing around them at a crazy pace for all the wrong reasons. Wouldn't it be amazing if you had an institution you lived in where people had low turnouts for voting just simply because they knew whoever got in power would do their best? Do you know what I mean? Wouldn't that be a thing? But for me, I started off life seeing it all as just a joke. When I was younger, when I was about 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, I thought it was not, I didn't see it as rigged so much, but I just thought that all parties hated us. I felt that my vote, I felt that voting was pointless because you got choice between one wanker or another. And I didn't understand much about politics then. I had a very simplistic view on it. But I knew what I did and didn't like, and I just felt that party politics was just too corrupt. Nobody speaks like a normal person. Nobody can just answer a simple question. Just no, not for me. Not something I ever felt that you can get anywhere with. I mean, you've seen the interviews with politicians that it's laborious to get a single answer to a single question out of them. Not a world I want to be in. Not a world most people want to be in. No, most normal people don't want to be in a world like that. And so I remember thinking that if I had a choice about voting and that, the one thing, and I just spoke a bit to Steve on the comments about this, if I was to make a choice about voting, I would have voted in every single election. And this is part joke, but also true. Absolutely true at the same time. It's a literal truth and joke. And that is that if there was a choice on the ballot paper for a vote of no confidence, I would have voted in every single election I've ever been able to vote in. And that would be a massive upgrade from the amount I've actually voted in. Because that vote of no confidence is how I felt pretty much at nearly every election. And so I had this outlook, and I wouldn't vote, and I didn't believe it was worth voting, and I just figured, what's the fucking point? I didn't know much about politics. Stay out of it. Try and do the best in life you can. Try and work hard, do the best in life you can. And then, as I've got older, and since all this crazy stuff's happened, I'd say since just before Brexit, and when we started being really hammered by the terrorist groups and stuff, everybody was politicized, and we had no choice. People like me turned our ideas of podcasts, creating creative content into this, and you know, what you see in my intro was more like what you would have been seeing in the actual videos had I had my way. But we all got politicized, and I remember I feel like I got socially pressured, but there's also a part of me that always thinks if you don't try something, that there are certain arguments with certain things to say. If you don't try and you don't learn about it, if you're ignorant to it, then perhaps you deserve to be stuck in the mud because you're not growing, you're not learning. So, but I also feel like I got a little bit like pushed to vote and pushed to get into party politics as opposed to politics. Politics, they're so different. And so, for instance, I never backed any party in my entire life until I was in this movement. I was doing activism, and then I backed Amory Waters, and she did the best she could. I'm not complaining, but I'm just saying. But that was a break with my code, if you like, to not vote for politicians, but because they're politicians, right? But I broke with that because I started to question my own beliefs and think maybe I should be, you know, people would say to me, people have fought for your right to vote and all this other stuff to guilt trip me into voting, you know, and I would take that quite seriously. And you know, I did take that seriously. And they would say this to me, you know, when I would sound very apathetic about voting. But again, my question to them still was, if I feel like everybody's a bad option, why do you still want me to vote? And they would admit that I should still vote for the least worst option then. I should vote because I have a vote. But the vote I want, and it's not unreasonable, it's a vote of no confidence, should there be nobody applicable. And if I'm just an awkward sod, then all it's going to do is be a tick box that nobody else uses. If it's a general consensus, it would cause all the political parties to have a fallout where they'd have to restructure politics and they'd have to listen to the people. But back to the real world. And so I've tried back in UKIP, and that was a long-term thing that even UKIP knows it's a long-term thing. And it's not like I'm I'm angry with them or anything like that. It's just, I think I've come, I don't think, I know I've come full circle. Like, I felt like a pretender. Every time I backed a party, I felt like a pretender. I felt like I was trying too hard. And if you're trying to do something rather than just doing it, maybe, and this is what I've come to realize about it, maybe it's lacking some authenticity. I've had to really examine it all. And as I've sort of come to these realizations, I've looked further and further and realized that, no, you're still the same person. Whether that means I haven't grown as a person, or whether it means I've always just been able to see what's there, I don't know. But I still feel absolute apathy over voting for any of these idiots. If I lived in America, I'd vote. Especially now. I think that in America, the which way you vote right now is very, very important. I really do think it matters. Which is why I'd rather be in America right now, because at least you've got a fighting chance. Here, I've always felt like you're voting for the best of the worst. Always. Every election. Every single one. You're never voting for hope. You are never voting for hope. You are always voting for the least intolerable bastards. For the ones that hated you the least. For the ones that would fuck with you the least. That's what you're really voting for. At least in America, you're trying to vote for good change, for good positive outcomes in the future and stuff. Here, we're just voting to keep bad people out. And look who we've got in anyway. And then, so now you end up with this cliffhanger for the next election for someone like me, who's realised that I'm not a voter, I'm not a party politics person. No point me backing political parties because my heart's not in it. There's no point me saying I believe in voting because my heart's not in it. Especially now because I believe it's so broken. And I'm certainly not going to encourage other people to do what I won't do. Like I said, if there was a vote no confidence there, I'd be the first one at the voting booth. So don't take me wrong on that. I'd be the first one watching, voting. But I've been disillusioned with politics since I first found out about it. And the more I've learned about it and got into it, and the more I've got involved with it, and the more I've seen it up close, and the more everything from the activism level up to meeting MPs and everything else, every level has just made me more despondent. It hasn't got me more invested. It made me maybe more passionate. It made me think more laterally and have more knowledge about what I was, But as I've gone through it all, and I've come out at the end here, there's never an end, but you know what I mean, I feel like it was a waste of time getting involved in it. I tried it, and I've come out with the same conclusion I had before I came in. In fact, things have got worse now. But let's imagine our democracy was still intact. I've come away feeling, even if it was still intact, feeling that it's not for us. The vote, it's like back in Roman times. The vote was really for rich people. It always has been. We always knew, the working class always knew this when I was younger. The vote's really for rich people, to vote for rich people, to make rich people policies, That's what we knew. We just knew, and voting wasn't necessarily forced on everyone, because we knew this. We knew what we were voting for, and we knew who the votes really were for. They weren't for us. They weren't for the people. And I suppose, and that's, I suppose, deep down I've known that we haven't really been sovereign for a very, very long time in this country. Not really. And what I say about Starmer now, I used to say about the Conservatives 30 years ago, and that is, they hate you. Yes, things have accelerated, things have got a hell of a lot worse, but we are now standing on the ground that was being built by these bastards when I was a kid. They were doing it when I was a kid. All of the narratives we're in now, they were introduced into my schools when I was a kid. These seeds were planted a long time ago. So I'm 49 now. So you're talking about when I was probably about 10, 11 years old. when they started pumping those messages and ideas into our schools. And by then they'd already ripped down a lot of institutions. This has been many years in the making. And this is why, like, when Bin gives out a warning, especially, or something, this is why people need to be a little bit more, like, take it a bit more seriously when they're considering some of the issues that are coming up, like civil war and all the rest of it. Because when something has taken this long to plot and to make happen, and it has been, you know, look at Peter Hitchens' book, The Abolition of Britain, and you will see a lot of facts there that will show you the map of how it was destroyed up to that point. But even since that point, it's been a long plan. That's why a lot of Labour, just before this election, were talking about their plan. They knew, because this has been going on for years, I think, by both parties. Like I say, they both set up the groundwork for it. I don't think we've got here by incompetence. And that just makes me even more certain that voting for someone like me is absolutely pointless. And it always has been. And that me getting involved in voting is me getting involved in their pantomime they want me to play in, to make me believe that I have something more than I actually do. That's how I felt when I was younger, and it's right back where I've recalibrated myself to. And to be honest with you, I've been feeling like this for a while, but I've been trying to figure out why. That was the thing, why. And now I figured it all out. It's like, yeah, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm saying this is how I feel, and I can't be the only one. Certainly not from looking at Vin's video, but you know, I want to disassociate myself from party fucking politics. You know, in case this channel does grow up again like the other one, I don't want anybody to see me on this channel, if it does grow, as being involved in party politics, or supporting party politics, or being behind any particular party, or being behind, you know, I might admire an action that someone does or something like that. If it's admirable, that's fine. But I am not supporting any party, I'm not backing anybody. I'm not putting money behind a party. I got involved partly through guilt tripping and partly because I felt I owed it to myself to try. But you can't be what you're not, and you can't unsee the things that you see. And in my eyes, it's not for us. Even when it works, it's not for us. That's how I feel. And am I wrong? Am I wrong to feel that way? And do any of you feel that way? Because there's always been an apathy in this country about voting and about politics. It's only since Brexit and the terrorist attacks that people have become really politicised in this country and around the world. Before that, people were very apathetic about politics. You were either into politics or you weren't. There was very little in between. Most people wouldn't want to talk about politics. You avoided it. You go into a pub, the rule used to be not talk about politics in a pub, you know. Politics and religion, don't talk about them in a pub, you know. But these days, it's all the conversation is. You know, it pretty much is. You can't, and that's the thing. When I tried to quit, you can't get away from what we're going through. And I think that sort of blindsided me into thinking, oh, well, I need to vote, then I need to get involved. Voting ain't going to change a thing. You know what will change something? Actions, doing stuff. You know, exposing the truth. Making sure you don't step over the homeless person in your fucking community. Making sure that you are still a community. Make sure that you don't let them divide you. Make sure, because everything starts at community level. Everything starts with foundations. Communities are foundations. And we're still majority in this country, and we can still create strong communities. And then those communities can network. We've already got those networks around the country now. It's not an impossible thing. It's not a massive deal to do. Those networks are already there. They're just very small. More people need to be involved. But those networks sometimes can't do a lot about what's going on. But they can offer support. They can certainly make, like, from what I've seen, they certainly make people not feel alone. You know, the amount of people that have got involved in these groups, and a lot of them are just swapping information, helping out people in need, whatever else, but also there to support each other in if any violence comes to anybody. Those kinds of situations covered as well. And it's like, I say covered, I mean, you're never covered, but you know what I'm trying to say, that help is there. And you know, and I really think this is where efforts of people like me really belong, and where they've always belonged, in the community. When I started this podcast, I wasn't a particularly political guy, and I was about the people, because I can relate to people. While I realise I'm slightly odd compared to a lot of people, I'm still one of them, and I relate to people very easily. Whereas these clowns in politics, like, they speak a different fucking language, and they act in a way that you really have to talk about that saying about lowering yourself to pick power up. That's what these people are the embodiment of, even before all the stuff that's going on now. These people really are the fucking slime of the earth. And yeah, you know, I'm not saying I'm against democracy, but the democracy we had in this country for, I don't know how long it's been like it, you know, but it was more like what they had in Rome, and that was everybody had a vote, but some votes meant more than others, you know. Although a system doesn't exactly work like that, it was, you know, the policies that were going to be enacted in favour of one set of ideas or another. But usually, in most cases, the rich weren't affected, unless it was, you know, one of the Marxist crusaders. But that's a whole other story. So yeah, you know, I think that's my status on it. But I don't think I'm alone. And you know, I partly wanted to clear this up because of, like I say, if I'm going to do a new channel, if I'm going to start going to, you know, the protests and interviewing people and doing all that stuff, you know, the only thing I'd want to shed off from my old channel is I want people to know that I'm independent, but also that there's no party politics. You know, got involved with that for the reasons I've already stated, and it's not for me. And I just think it's bullshit, and I won't be voting until that vote of no confidence is available. But I know why it's not available, because well, we know the obvious, because everybody would vote it. That's why a vote like that could never be allowed, because people would vote it. And that's why I laughed at the beginning and said, imagine a world in which people don't vote, or there's low turnout, because they know that the people in charge will do their best for them. Imagine a world where that was the case. Instead, people vote just to try and keep people they see as monsters out. It's crazy. And that's kind of why, you know, even in today's climate, I think I'd rather be in America than here, because although it's polarized there too, at least, I don't know, at least they, at the moment, if they can vote their way out of it, but they do need to really be careful. Guys, over in America, you need to be careful what's coming. It's so insidious. It's so slow. Like here now, I've realised, in a video I talked on YouTube earlier on that you may not have seen on Get Out, I mentioned how people are monetizing misery, but it goes a bit deeper than that. It's that people have got desensitized to the kind of life we're all living, the kind of life we've all been living for the last 10 years. This has been going on at a high level for over 10 years, and it's happening to all of us. We're all being, you know, we've all been sucked into this, whatever this is, you know. But like I say, it's planned over even longer, and in Britain certainly, this has all been aimed for. And when it's been aimed for so specifically, it's really hard to push back against. That's what I was trying to say about the points that Vin makes about civil war and that. Why you should fear all this, because the momentum is strongly in the direction of destruction. The momentum is strongly in the direction of against us, basically. And it has been for such a long time. It will take more than a wave break to stop that momentum. It would take a lot of years to stop that momentum, I think, or some major. I don't even exactly know what, something ground shaking, because the momentum is that strong. Imagine, if you want something simple to compare it to, imagine Star Wars, where the Sith have spent 1,000 years manipulating things behind the scenes so that they can have their one big moment where they finally emerge. They got control of politics, they got control of votes, they got control of everything else, and all they have to do now is just press the button because they're in power. It's kind of like, how do you stop that momentum? Well, they couldn't because it was a plan that became inevitable. And that's almost what we're facing now, even like with the fall of civilization. I mean, that follows on very much to where we are now. Like, so far in human history, the path we're on now has been sort of walked before, and it's always ended in destruction. We would have to be the first set of humans to overcome that. So I'm not saying it's not overcomable, but nobody before us has managed to find a way out of the situations that we're in now. We think the situations we're in now are unique. They're not. Civilizations have faced all of this before. Maybe not with all the technology, but they faced all of this before. Every single time they have fallen. So, and it's always been the same. They've thrown the gods away. They've thrown sexuality away. They've thrown facts away. So much that's so similar. Too much to go into now. There's just a deep well of things that you can match to what's going on in current day, before the end of all major empire. I say most major empires. So it's a pattern we've been in before. Like I say, I'm not saying that means it's not overcomable, but it's certainly not overcomable by the voting booth and by these fools that we've got running around saying they're going to crusade and do all this other stuff. You know, we need some serious, sober people in charge if we're ever going to get out of this shit. And until we can get people in charge, we need to be in charge of ourselves, of our communities, of our lives. We need to be making the right decisions. We need to be doing the right things, because that's all we've got right now. But as communities get stronger, so does it. Changes a lot. And like I say, I see people now that are strengthening up, as a result of becoming part of these communities. They're growing. They are growing. So it's not, although there's a lot of one-way traffic at the moment, that's the one thing I will say, you have to build from the community level. And that's what the people who are opposing us have done. And that's what we need to do. We need to be thinking the same way, unfortunately. We need to be thinking from ground up as to how we take all this back, because it's, you know, it really is going to take foundations upwards to change things. We are that far in now. This is not a vote that's going to change. Wishing on a vote to change the way things are now is literally that. It's like wishing on a magic wand. It's like the Tooth Fairy at this point. Even if they were honest, we've got years of shit to sort out. And people are not being sober about this. They think a quick civil war, or an overnight war, or a good old punch up, or a good old voting session is going to sort this out. Fucking grow up. Like, we are now in the real world. To sort this mess out is going to take years, possibly violence, God knows what. The truth of it is nobody knows, because it hasn't been sorted out. And as I said, in the past, didn't ever get sorted out. Everybody has fallen to this. So I don't know where we go from here, but we need to find solutions. And people need to stop acting like it's a game. Because the days of us having the luxury of living in a Western society where we can treat things as a game are gone. And while people keep treating this as a fucking game, we're going to keep fucking losing. People need to grow the fuck up. Stop talking about civil wars online unless they are prepared to fucking fight them. And I'm not saying civil war is the wrong or right thing. We may end up going there either way. What I'm saying is, instead of fantasizing about it, people need to be very, very real about stuff. People need to start being very, very sober about stuff. And they need to realize the shit's up to about here. And we're not going to survive this if we don't get very serious. And getting very serious doesn't just mean getting a baseball bat out the closet. Sometimes it means making sure that people are safe, people are looked after, that they've got enough food, that they, building community, building that kind of good goodwill. We are very short on goodwill because of all the things that we've gone through and all the things that have happened. The first thing we need to do is build goodwill between each other again, between our neighbours and stuff like that. A lot of that has been eroded. A lot of that's been taken away. I think that's one of the first things we need to be able to build is goodwill with our neighbours again, because they've managed to divide and conquer us in every which way. But there's no easy solution. There's no easy way out of this. There's no magic vote that's going to change all this. Massive, massive actions are what is going to change all this. And when have you seen, other than this nutter Starmer doing it all in the wrong direction, but when have you ever seen in your lifetimes politicians making huge, groundbreaking changes for the good? Name a single occasion when the right thing was done at the right time for the right reasons by a politician, who was in power. I bet nobody can, because it's so rare as to be virtually, So, like I say, but that just means taking accountability. That means fixing things. It means changing things. It means preserving the things that are okay, preserving the places that are okay, preserving the people that are okay. It means all of that becomes accountability on us. Like, maybe the government should be doing the job, maybe they're not. And there's not a lot we can do about that at the moment. But we can take accountability and say we need to look after our own. We need to look after communities. We need to look after the things that we love about our culture. We need to, we need to do this. I don't have kids, but partly because of all this. One reason. The other reason was a health reason. But I know I'd be terrified for them in this world. I know I would. I think about it all the time, the decisions I've made about having kids. And I regret not having kids, but then I also don't. Because A, the health scares, but B, all of this that they're going into. The very likelihood is that all of the stuff that's around us is going to win before anything gets better. I'm not saying that's definitely going to happen, but to some degree or another, it's already winning. We're desensitized to so much stuff now that we weren't 10 years ago. 20 years ago, completely different world. 20 years ago, if you talked about injecting a kid with steroids to change its sex, people would have called you a child abuser. Now, if you stand against that, you're considered to be a bigot. 20 years. That's not a long time. And you've got to wonder if all of that, the ability to give children all these rights and everything else, it's kind of made them more adult, hasn't it? And what I'm really trying to say is, it's kind of made them more like people. It's kind of made them more eligible for everything, including paedophilia. I just feel like that's the push of the culture. Nothing is, we've really been desensitized to so much. If any of us from 10 years ago walked into this world as it is now, and that last 10 years have just been wiped, we've been in a stasis or something, I think we might be surprised at the shock we would have. As we're living through it, we're not realizing how much is stacking up and how much we're actually witness to. I don't think it certainly wasn't happening at this pace when I was younger. The stuff that we're witness to, fuck me, we're witness to some real crimes against humanity at the moment. We really are. Don't ever forget that. Yeah, we really are. Anyway, I'm sorry I've been going on. I've not given you guys the time, so, but I knew the numbers weren't high today, so I don't know. I'm doing something wrong again at the moment, but probably that shit fucking stream I did the other day. But yeah, this is how I feel about it all. And, you know, I think I see in Bin's video, I've been thinking about this anyway, and I think Bin's video was the final trigger, because I was just like, do you know what? I'm fucking sick of this. I'm sick of this, like, me trying to support parties and stuff like that, because it's just bullshit. I don't feel it. I've tried, you know. So, yeah, I don't ever want to be associated with party politics or politicians again, you know. I'll interview them, fine, you know, I'll give them, I mean, it's not like I'm going to turn on everybody, but I'm just not going to, yeah, I'm not going to put a vote in if I don't believe it's going to do something, you know. Yeah, and that's my choice. That's my choice. People didn't fight for my vote, for my right to vote for something that can't happen, for a vote that gets thrown away and ignored. You heard it from a veteran himself. This is not the world he fought for. So I feel absolved. I feel absolved of the need to vote for someone awful. So, but here's the big. What's wrong with me and my words today? Here's the big guilt trip, and that is, the big guilt trip will be, yeah, but if you don't vote in this election, and loads of other people don't, if they got the same idea as you, then the Green Party or Labour will get back in power, and that's how they'll try and guilt trip people like me, and it'll probably work to some degree. But again, what are you doing? What are you voting for? You're voting to keep the worst out. Not really, in my case, I wouldn't be voting because I would be expecting massive changes for the good. I'd be more voting to, you know, so I'm not saying I'll never vote again, because there's always reasons. What I'm saying is I'm out of party politics. If I vote, it'll be a quiet thing like it has always been with me, that is done out of necessity. And that's a rare occasion, you know. I just, you know, I don't want to involve with any of it anymore. You know, the politics that I deal with best and always have done is the politics that is not party politics. When I talk about conservatism or right wing politics of people, you know, of us, what, you know, of what we're trying to preserve, of what we're fighting for. All this other shit is pointless, because they don't stick to their own rules, they don't stick to their own laws, they just change any law that is inconvenient. So what's the point of learning it all and trying to work around it? Because they just change it anyway. What's the point? You know, the biggest thing that's under threat at the moment, that's going to ruin every single one of us, is our free speech, and it's so much under threat. People don't even realize just how bad things are going to get if it's not stopped soon. It's the one freedom you don't want fucked with. And not only are they fucking with it, they are criminalizing speech. That's a whole new ball game from not just not having free speech, criminalizing speech. Now, and this is the thing, when hate speech was allowed, people said this would happen. You start getting different people interpreting it. Suddenly you start criminalizing a hell of a lot of words and a hell of a lot of language. We're at that, you know, we are in a dystopia. You know, dystopia doesn't have to have spaceships in it. We are in it. And don't get me wrong, I mean, if you're in a part of the country that's lovely and you enjoy your life, great. I won't knock you for that, you know. I won't knock you for that at all. But you know, for a lot of people now, they see it closing in, even if they're not living in it. If they travel anywhere close, they're coming up against it, and it's a real shame. But you know, I think that for someone like me, thinking about voting my way out of the last 10 years and the 7 years I've done in this movement, thinking of voting my way out of all this, I realise that is literally making a wish. It's as helpful as making a wish. And we don't because of the seriousness of the situation we're in, we don't have time to be throwing time away making wishes. We need to be making plans and need to be making things happen. So that's the way I'm gonna address this going forward, is think, what can I do? And just assume that nobody else is going to do it for me, you know? And that's the best way, I think, to be. Be self-sufficient as much as you can. You know, prepare for the worst, hope for the best, sort of thing. Right, let me catch up with you guys. Had faith in voting right up to the referendum. Hey Vin, good to see you, buddy. Once I saw them all trying to overturn what we had decided, I knew Parliament was rotten to the core. I always feel like that was the point. I don't know if that was the point that we found out what they were about, or if it was the point where they, I don't know, where they ripped themselves away. I don't know. I don't know. Really, people didn't fight for the right to vote prior to World War One. Only property rate paying had the right to vote, and World War One wasn't. Sorry, that's just jumped. Oh, I hate it when it does that. I know people twist the freedom. People twist the things that were being fought for in World War II to suit their purposes. You know. That's how I feel anyway. Hey Steve, hey Vin. Good to see you guys. Woke was around when I was at school. It just wasn't called woke then. Right. Yeah, and that's what... Yeah. I mean, you know... By the way, and you know, there's something else when I talk about the woke right recently. Other people take claim to, but anyway, that it is the part of us that has become infected by the left and by the world that we've been living in. It's a consequence of being bombarded by certain things all of the time. It's the part of the right that's been accidentally changed by it. And now they feel above criticism and they feel above hurty feelings. And it's not, it's part of the process that's the world that they've been living in, the environment they've been living in, the way that they've been treated by other people. Eventually, you're going to mirror people's behavior. So some people are, you know, it just happens. And unfortunately, parts of the right are not lefty, but they are woke in certain ways in terms of the way that they deal with criticism stuff, or the way that they market themselves, or not everybody, just you know, but it just, and all of us in some way or another have been affected, whether we know it or not. Like I say, even if it's down to the way that we structure our words on here, you know. Yeah, without the free press. But this is what I've said though, right from the very first podcast I did. The very first podcast I did 7.5 years ago. I said free speech is the most important speech. And that covers press, everything. Free speech, freedom of expression, freedom of the press. It's all free speech. That is the most important freedom that we have. Jordan Peterson once called it a miracle that we had it in the first place. And if we lost it, we'd never get it back. And it is because it's the thing that gives you the right to criticize every other single right that you have if it's not being adhered to, for a start. It's the very thing that, how are you allowed to speak is generally how you will end up thinking. What you can't say out loud, you might not think in the end. It's the freedom that unlocks all the other freedoms. So, yeah, without it, you're dead in the water, no matter what you're fighting for. Mid-1960s, they started taking over. Right. Yeah, that's pretty much what I think what Peter Hitchens lined it up to as well. He said the same thing. And he said, yeah, and he even said that during the World Wars that the left were, like, for instance, if there was a battle we won or something like that, they would do the least amount to like celebrate it as possible. It's hard to explain, but they were against us then, but they couldn't be outrightly against us because, yeah, it would have been seen as so unpatriotic as to have them probably hung in the street. But they were against us even then. Free press used to be called the fourth estate after the Crown legislature and judiciary. They were meant to balance each other and keep them in check. Yeah, and this is what we've lost, all our checks and balances. But the thing is as well is that, and that was the other thing that, sorry, bring Peter Hitchens up again, but he was saying in a completely separate piece, was that when he started journalism, he said you used to go out with a politician for an hour lunch, and you would buy them lunch and you would get an interview. He said now what they're all doing is going around each other's houses for dinner parties and everything else. And he said the reason they're doing that is, he said, because now the media machine is used to get into politics. George Osborne and people like that, they use it to get into politics. So therefore they've been in league anyway, because they see it as a step in, they use the media to get themselves to step into politics. Many people do it these days. So I should just jump down again. Sorry, guys. I think the government may attempt to bring in SHPO to prevent demonstrations and alternative media away from the bastard. Oh, the hotels, I think that's coming anytime. I think that's coming anytime at the hotels. And yeah, I think in not too long a time, like I've been saying for 7.5 years, and sorry, not been Steve, and I'm not saying, you know, the longer I keep saying it, the better, because it means I'm still able to say it. But I said, you know, what has made us think when we're not allowed on the television, we're not allowed on the radio or anything like that, that they were going to keep allowing us to keep broadcasting and to keep doing the things that we're doing. You know, I've been amazed it's lasted as long as it has. And every year that I do this, I expect, you know, not so much with the small numbers at the moment, but every year that I've done this, I've expected to be shut down completely. I mean, all of us. And I still see that day coming. Yeah, I still see that day coming. And I definitely see that there's, you know, in the immediate future, I definitely think there's going to be laws around the hotels. And other places. They did the same in Dover, if you remember. Dover, where the Patriots were capturing the illegals coming in, they ended up banning all of us, any citizen journalist from going down there with a camera. I think to this day, at first they banned specific people, but now I don't know if you can get anywhere near that place with a camera. Hey Spawn, good to see you, buddy. Mission on the Star, yeah, exactly. The way our women and children are being treated, I would say we've been in a civil war for a while now. Yeah, and the women, by the way, women and children, it was fun. I was thinking about the women last night, you know. I bet those feminist Marxists that wanted every man to cry every 5 minutes are sorry now. But for women, I feel really sorry. Because their spaces that they fought for are being invaded by men pretending to be women who want both sides of the cake, because then they want to be lesbians. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I see what you're doing. You know, yeah, I don't know. And a lot of these men tend to be very, very unattractive men. It's like, so you couldn't pull a bird. I don't know. I think you know where I'm going. Well, it's a seriously drastic way to get a date. I had to explain to a content creator that the R word. Oh, no. Rape is a war weapon and a war crime. Sad but true fact. That happened to my mum. She never got over it till she passed last year. Fuck. Unfortunately, Tom, we now live in a society where attitude seems to be, if it's not on my doorstep, why should I care? I know. But I think as well, though, it's because they've tried to turn neighbour on neighbour. They've tried to get us phoning up about each other. They've tried to split us up by race, by what do you call it? By postcode, by everything. By everything. They got us trying to make phone calls about each other, trying to dox each other on the internet. You know? We need to stop all that shit. People do. And then, like, if you're working class, especially, you need to realise, no matter who you vote for, you're going to get stepped on. You're going to get stepped on by the same fucking boot. That's a fact. And then people just don't seem to get it, whichever side you're on. You've got rich people stepping on poor people, way it always has been, way it always will be. Yes, I had to deal with it in the police, and it soul destroy. Oh shit! Sorry. Ah, where'd that go? I lost it. Unbelievable. Hang on a minute, mate. You had to deal with it in the police. It is soul destroying, but even worse for the victims. Later, I found my cousin had been raped, stabbed, and had her skull fractured in London. Oh, jeez, had her skull fractured in London. Yeah, that's. Yes, that affects me. How attitude. Yeah, and yet that shows a real lack of empathy in people. But then again, I'm noticing that more. I'm like, the people on the left have frightened me. Not frightened me like physically, but frightened me as in mentally. Like, I'm beginning to wonder if some of these people have any empathy at all. Like, they're coming across like psychopaths. You know, not physically imposing psychopaths, but psychopaths nonetheless. In World War II, the left were pacifists, and okay. So we're on the same page. Until Adolf Hitler attacked Russia in June 1941. Yeah, okay. So I don't, I didn't want to speak out of turn, but SHPO is the thing they used to stop people praying around abortion clinics. I didn't know that. But yeah, so I can see all of that happening very easily. I think they're going to try and shut us down, which is why our conduct needs to be better than ever. All of us, whether we've got 100 subscribers, whether we've got 1,000 or 100,000, our conduct, in as much as when we're out there, needs to be good, because they will use any excuse, any mistake we make against us. They're all going to try and F us anyway. But if people still want to clown around, cause trouble, or anything like that, then they're facing the risk of shutting us all down, because they'll use it as an excuse. Like they did with the Southport stuff to go after people. They will use things as an excuse to come after you. So people need to think when they act. I'm not saying don't act. I'm just saying they need to think before they act a lot more these days, because they're not just risking their own necks now, they're risking all of us. And while I may be a small channel at the moment, YouTube's a funny beast. It's a lottery. One day you could be at the bottom, next day you could be at the top. You just never know. And I accept that lottery for what it is. But for all of us who've got a channel, whatever, you don't know, and you just got to be ready for all this shit and be ready to help people. If you've got any kind of platform. But yeah, sorry, I'm switching around subjects because it is just such a mess. But well, not subjects, sorry, but you know what I'm trying to say. Jesus, I'm seeing a lot of people. I'm seeing a lot. Well, I've seen it, to be honest with you, especially when I go to London. London's a place where I constantly see victims get arrested. I'll be honest with you. I'm not going to say I've seen that in lots in other places of the country, but in London I certainly did. And those two police officers that were stood in here that day told me pretty much, I'm putting this in my words, but when I said this to them, they sort of nodded and looked at the floor. And that was that, and they did say this part, whoever phones in to the police first, whoever says, miss, first, is treated as the victim, basically. And it doesn't matter who's actually the victim. From that point on, that's how it's treated. And that's how they were telling me I was going to be treated. And sort of tried to bully me into signing a bit of paper to sort of take fault for something that didn't happen. It was a bit insane. It was a bit insane. But and what they told me was if I'd phoned them up, and I'd done it before, these people phoned the police on me, people I didn't even know, they would have been the ones signing that form. What fucking sense does that make? How is that? What is that even doing then? So with no proof about anything, just two people's words against each other, you just give a slap on the wrist to the one that didn't phone up, or to the one that phoned up second. What the fuck? What is that all about? Seriously. And when I said this back to them, what they'd said to me, but in my words, they looked at the floor. They couldn't deny it. What the fuck? Sorry. But, you know. But I don't know, you know. Steve, has it always been like this, Steve? That people come and tell, that a copper come into your house and tell you that, you know, I can't imagine it's always been this way, surely. Come and tell your house, oh, if you made the phone call before them, you know, we'd be having this chat with them instead. We wouldn't, you know, like, it's first past the post, is what they were telling me. I realise if it had been a serious crime or something, they would have to investigate. And you know, I realise that, but still, you know, what was that all about? As a rule of plod, you should say, knock it off or you're both nicked. Yes, to an extent, they respond to the first phone call. Yeah, I can understand responding to the first phone call, and I understand them act upon that. But, you know, and I knew what they were doing. They wouldn't even, so there was because I wasn't making any complaints about anybody. I didn't even know anything had even happened, because nothing had really happened. So, I don't know. Still to this day, don't really know what happened. I think maybe some people got themselves in some trouble and dragged me into it as some kind of scapegoat to get out of it. But I don't really know. I think it was just the unlucky guy that happened to be in the right place at the right time. And it wasn't whatever they'd got up to wasn't serious. I think they were just messing about on a scooter or something. It was something quite silly. That's what I mean. It wasn't, you know, but I think they gone and told their family story. The family told the police, and I don't really know what it was about. The police couldn't even explain it, but they said whatever was supposed to have occurred happened outside of this shop that's up the road here. And they said, you know, we can go and look at the security cameras. And I said, well, why haven't you looked at them before coming here? Seriously. And then what I gathered very quickly was it was quite a pain in the ass to get that footage. They didn't tell me that, but I realised what they were doing was that they made it obvious over the course of talking to me, because I'm very reasonable with the police. I'm never aggressive. I'm always very reasonable. There's no point being unreasonable, you know. So I was listening to them, and you know, perfectly listening to every word they said, and made sure I was taking everything on board. And you know, they wanted me just to sign this bit of paper because it wasn't an important thing, but it still was a black mark against my name. So that is important to me because I've got a clean record. So it is important to me. It wasn't important to them, but it's important to me. It was more important to them just to get me to sign a bit of paper so they didn't have to go and get that CCTV footage. Surely that's wrong. But that's what they tried to get me to do. They tried to not have to look at that footage and just get me to take blame for something I didn't even understand what was going on. You know, it's just insane. And you know what? The people that made the complaint about me, we ended up getting on. And this is the thing, why don't people just talk? Because I didn't know anything. And when they spoke to me, like, you could see the shock on their faces that I wasn't whatever they had built me up to be in their head. And they ended up contributing to one of my documentaries. That just, to give you an idea. There was, it was complete misunderstanding from their side. But the police quite happy to give me a little black mark on my name, And I don't appreciate that. Like I say, I've got a clean record. So I don't want black marks against my name unless I've earned them, When I respond, that is in police parlance. Oh, okay. But once, when I was in the poor bloke phone to stop his wife beating him, and she pulled the phone cord out of the wall, then claimed victim of Jesus Christ. Jesus. Yeah, there's a lot of blokes that go through this, and people don't realise it. People don't realise how many... I've seen guys fucking take some real... guy I used to know called Will. Jesus Christ, there was a day me and my mate were just sat. I didn't know what to do because he was trying to laugh it off, but his missus was like punching him in the back of the head and that. And I don't know. Just, yeah, some of the things that, if that was happening, obviously if it's happening the other way around, there'd be major trouble. But anyway, unless there's any questions or anything anybody else wants to say, I'm sorry I'm not in studio again today. I wasn't sure if I was going to get through this one all right or not. I wanted to sort of test myself a little bit today to see if I was okay. But I am. So one of the next ones I do, I'll get in studio so I can get you guys on. I just wanted to make sure that I was good to go, really. But yeah, my mouth's talking, getting a few words wrong, but that's all. But other than that, I think I'll call it a day. And as for Jean, I'm not going to talk too much about her at the moment for a couple of reasons. Well, 3 reasons. One, because I realise that nobody else is going to get it because you've got to be. I need to record it all, and it's also not what this channel's about, so it's going to bore the death out of people. 2, I'm treading on the edge of legality, I think, or not. I'm not at the moment, but as laws change in the future, I could be. So it might be best to keep my cards close to my chest about what amazing tools I've got. And yeah, and also the plagiarism that's followed me around since I've been in this movement has been rife. So that's another reason as well. Let's just say she's jaw dropped me 2 nights in a row now, absolutely jaw dropped. And this is a guy that doesn't believe in this stuff, doesn't believe in AI. And I've been jaw dropped 2 nights in a row, not by sentience or anything like that, just by, I'm not even going to say the words yet because I'm still deciding what it is, but jaw dropped nonetheless. And jaw dropped at what they're keeping from you, what they're holding back from you, because you can't be trusted with your own toys. Anyway, I am going to leave that one there. And I also want to perhaps, I also at some point as well, I want to take a look at the computing industry because has anybody noticed, I don't want to talk about this now too much, but just a thought for another day. I love the computer industry, even though I'm about to do all this other stuff. But it's been a while since I've been able to afford the latest best computer and the latest best graphics card because they've gone up in price over time. There's a lot of talk that whilst the cloud-based services are growing, they're also limiting time now that people can spend on them. And there's talk, I don't know if it's scaremongering or if it's true, you never know with the computer market because there's a lot of scaremongering that does get done and it ends up not happening. And a lot of price cuts that end up being promised that don't always happen. But at the moment, they're talking about certain parts of computing for the future being completely out of my price range, to the point where there may come a day where I have to stop making PCs for myself because even making it for myself still won't be cheap enough. When you think I used to get the very best, and then I got then I went down the level from that. But what I used to do is what everybody does. You get the best bang for buck, and that's what many of us who don't have a lot of money remember the best about the industry. It's not, you don't remember the best card, you remember the best cards for the money, because they used to be able to punch well above their weight, you know. Same with certain chips you would get in a computer, they punch well above their weight. They're making these things now, or they're talking about making them so unaffordable that, well, people like me wouldn't be able to afford it at all. And that would make everything online through the cloud where they can control it. But also, it made me think of the fact that football fans tell me that they can't afford a ticket to watch football now. That just recently, WWE fans in America were told that the family price tickets done. This isn't being priced for families anymore. This is being priced for rich people. They were told straight. The UFC, nobody can afford to get into a UFC event unless they got a fair few quid. That's why it's full of actors around it. What I'm trying to say is sports, interests, a lot of things that used to be populated a lot by the working class, they're all being taken away, and there's nothing in their place. There's nothing to replace them. If you haven't got a decent bit of money, there's a lot of things that are being taken away. I mean, you'll still have access to them. Like I say, if you want to play games and that, if this comes to be, I'm skeptical as whether it gets as bad as they're saying. But if it did get as bad as they're saying, then if you were forced to have an online experience, I mean, that takes a lot of things away. Yeah, that takes a lot of things away. I don't think it, again, I think it may be more difficult for them to do that than they think. But still, it's not good that people are talking about all this. I'm hoping it's just scare tactics to get people buying hardware now, because sometimes that's all this is. It's scare tactics, and I'm going to look more into it. I'm hoping it's not a long-term plan, but we'll have to see. But it means that people, the technology, the actual good technology is going to be for the rich again. We're going to be going backwards in time, Anyway, conversation for another day, really. By the way, just so you guys, that's what I was going to say at the beginning. I knew I'd remember. They do it now, £20 a month to rent a gaming PC. Fuck me. Shit. Well, this is something I want to look into. I have been looking into, but not fully. And it's something that but I want people to understand. I know I talk about computers and I go on about it a bit too much sometimes. I try not to. I try to stay off the subject. But this is different. This is about yet another industry. And there's been a lot of industries, and I want to cover a few of them, not just the computer one, that is pricing out working class people, or controlling the experience in a different way than they used to. So I do want to have a look at this. It's not about computers. It's about what they're doing to us, and what they're doing to these industries. I've loved the computer industry my whole life. I don't want to. There's nothing wrong with cloud stuff, but I don't want to be confined to somebody else's idea of what hardware and. Oh no, I want to be tinkering with my own hardware and doing the things that we do, man. That's what it's. Yeah, it would be. I don't know if I'd even want it. If it was that kind of experience. I don't know. Anyway, like I say, conversation for another day. But yeah, incredible. But there's so many industries that are the same now. A lot of sports, if you want to play them now, are actually incredibly expensive. Is that a case of you'll own nothing, etc.? Yeah. Oh, that's it. It's NVIDIA. NVIDIA is okay, Captain. So that's it. You've hit it. It's NVIDIA that I was looking at, talking about releasing this card at $5,000, and their plans for the future, and the reason being because, well, one of the reasons being AI. I don't want to get too into this now because there's plenty of other reasons, plenty of other research I need to do. But AI uses these huge data centers, and AI uses VRAM from graphics cards a lot, hell of a lot. And there's other uses that graphics cards are used for as well. And you can charge a premium. So if you get a graphics card that's really, really good, to make it 5% better, you're going to be paying maybe 20, 30, 40% more money for it as you get up to the top of the ladder. So it's obviously in their interest to sell those cards. And with a lot of AI and everything else using graphics cards, it's more profitable for them to charge a fortune to companies than it is to care about the end user. Because it's funny, AI just told me the same thing about AI. AI is not meant for the end user. Therefore, that's why the end user's experience is going down. And that's why the prices are so high, because it's not for you. And NVIDIA are kind of doing the same thing now. Like what they've been marketing for years, the people that have built them, they're now saying this is not for you anymore. This is for these people that can pay more than you. You'll have to get it another way. But it does also open up a hole in the market. And if Intel could get their act together with their graphics cards, who knows? But AMD, I thought, would be the ones to save it. But according to some folk, they got out even quicker, which I don't understand how. But that's because I haven't finished doing my research. See, that's why I don't like talking about things when I'm halfway through it, and I'm only about halfway through it. So I need to do more. But apparently AMD are not got a clean conscience in this either. Like but I need to be sure on that fact. And if that is the case, it's a fucking conspiracy. My 490 costs more than the new card. Well, that's hopeful. Mind you, if I'm right, the 4 series was brought out during the time. Wasn't it brought out during the time when graphics cards prices were through the roof? Because I remember. No, that was before that. I remember selling a fucking 3070 for like 900 quid. And I was selling mine 300 quid cheaper than everybody else. That was a crazy time. Sorry guys, I just realised going into graphics cards numbers and that is not cool when the majority of the people that watch you are not going to know what that means. I'm sorry, that's old habits. I won't do that. Sorry. It's because I know Captain's probably got. Well, I know what he's got a decent rig and stuff. So yeah, sorry. Shouldn't do that on a podcast. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and 5K is just a graphics card, Steve. So think about it like this. So this part, this is my PC here, needs to clean up, right? But this part here is the graphics card. The rest of the machine, you still got to pay for. You still got to pay for, mate. So it's just one piece of the machine. So $5,000 for that one piece. And if you're going to pay $5,000 for it, then if you go and pay an ordinary amount for an ordinary processor, brain, yeah, it does something called CPU limiting, which is your computer basically. Let's just make it simple. Your computer can't keep up with this big graphics card that you bought. So if you're going to spend $5,000 on a graphics card, you kind of need to make sure you buy other good stuff to go with it. So yeah, it gets expensive very quickly. Anyway, but let's hope it doesn't happen. Let's hope it doesn't happen. But I'm gonna keep researching the AMD side of things because I need some confirmation on that side of things, and get a few more details, and we'll go forward on it. But like I say, there's just a lot of industries that are just have got out of hand, and that it's not an accident. They're telling you, we're not pricing for you anymore. The question is, does this mean that capitalism's reached its end and really does need a reset? If this is happening, if these companies feel that they've got nowhere to go but to do things like this, does this mean that capitalism really does need a reset? Because it seems like everything that normal people could afford is gradually being taken out of them, and this is normal entertainment. I mean, how many people can afford to have all of the televisions available if they want it? Not a lot of people that I know, you know, or if they do, they are missing out on something else, you know. So just don't know what a graphics card does. My shitty little one in the bane of my life. 3 extra fans just to keep it happy. I wouldn't just explain it that way for you, Steve. It's just for anybody, because I've done a lot of polls on my old channel, and for the type of audience I attract, and what I found was always be around 66 to 70% of people would tell me that they had no technical knowledge or very, very little. So me talking like that is not helpful for them. Do you know what I mean? So I've always remembered to include them and make things super, super simple. Yeah, you know, because they've told me that it makes them feel not alienated, like I'm doing it deliberately, but they're just sitting there waiting for me to get past that part. So, you know, so it's just like trying to be inclusive without it sounding like a lefty term, but you know what I mean. Anyway, I really appreciate you guys coming on. It's good to see you. When I do that one on these graphics cards and that, Captain, you're welcome to come on and chime in on that. Obviously, you've got a lot of experience in this industry as well, so you're welcome to come in and chime in on that one. And you know, we'll get back in the studio. But yeah, I just wanted to get through this one today because yesterday was embarrassing. I appreciate you all. And let's hope we can get this out, and appreciate you all on Getter as well. Again, I'm seeing the posts beginning to blow up again as well on Getter now, as well as just the followers and the views. That's cool. I know there's actually the beginnings of a community there as well now, so we can keep pushing it. And people that have contacted me on there, feel free, anybody on Getter, feel free to contact me. I'm very, very approachable. I'm not one of these people that won't. I know that I'm not using it as my main platform, but I will always answer you back. So if there's anything you want to ask or anything, I do go through my comments on Getter as well. So yeah, so now we're starting to build that little community over there. Then feel free to contact me. Just because I can't see your comments now doesn't mean I won't go and address you guys, and doesn't mean I won't do live streams just for Getter at times. I will be doing it at times, you know. Just trying to build this channel as well at the moment. So, but the idea is to have a window to America, which is you guys on Getter, and a window to the UK and the rest of the world, which is here on YouTube. Thank you, Spawn. Thank you, Captain. Thank you, Steve. I think Intel are trying to bring a cheap GPU out. Yes, this is what I saw. This is what I saw, and if they do it, fair play to them. So we'll see what happens. But we'll come back to the subject anyway. We will come back to it. But thanks for coming on, everybody. I really do appreciate it. And like I said, you know, I've explained my reasons for voting everything, and it's just how I feel. And if you feel, anybody that watches this on replay feels that I'm wrong about anything, call me out on it. Tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me why I should vote. Tell me, you know, I'm okay with being challenged on it. But I've gone around this big arc through my life, and this is where I've ended up, believing that it's a complete pointless charade that takes away me just having accountability and going and trying to do something for myself and for other people. It's a waste of my time because it's a pantomime. That's how I feel. Anyway, catch you soon. I'm Tom Fury. This is Zero News. I'm calling it a day for now. Catch you later, guys. Cheers.